And also thanks to Mario. Mario's been also working quite hard with his whole team in preparing this use case and also part of the training that we'll be delivering very shortly in September. So there are two slightly different topics today. They're all part of the unifying data and AI governance. Mario's going to start with some of the amazing work that's been happening around LLMs and chatbots and having to pay attention to some of the sensitive areas within that sphere, and there are some other areas as well. So we'll start off with Mario, and then what I'll do is I've in the last week or two I've been doing lots of work in using AI algorithms to do anomaly detection for the claims. And as I started working on this, it really hit me how powerful this anomaly detection is, and what I've phrased it as is reasonableness checks. So in data quality, in that one dimension that I'd used once or twice at the central bank to pick up variances that we needed appropriate variance within that field, the data that was being submitted. I've certainly seen how powerful these AI algorithms are to detect outliers, and it's all about the outliers. So I'll deal with that after Mario has taken us through the FNOL, which is the first notice of loss as you come in insurance, and one can be using chatbots to deal with it, but I think we're all aware of how challenging chatbots can be. It's been in the news. There's lots of challenges, and we have to all be a little bit careful about just applying this technology. So, Mario, over to you, sir. I'm sure you've got lots to share.
Yes, thank you, Howard. So in the last session, one of the thing we discussed was that in order to succeed in building AI system, you need to consider many governance facets. Thus, the topic here is unification of governance. So you need to consider many facets when you want to create a governance system. Now, it can be very quickly overwhelming. Many facets needs to be considered. So the challenge is, how do you determine the required element that you need to consider? How do you determine the subset? And one of the things we said is that the first input to determining the subset of all the governance requirement is the nature of your use case. So if your organization, for the next year intend to build a chatbot, the governance requirement, the elements on which you need to focus are not the same. That is, if you're getting into predictive modeling or using OCR and automated capabilities, the governance requirement, the first driver in determining what matters is the nature of what your organization wants to do. So if it's an FNOL, certain requirements are inherent to the nature of this. And we're going to look at these requirements today. Yes, Howard.
And Mario, if I'm correct, these also apply to LLMs, right? So whilst we're talking about chatbots, there are other applications for the same set of controls and understanding. Is that correct? So it could be agents,
absolutely.
agentic AI that people are using and we're engaging with. So it's a wider scale than just chatbot.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I think that's better.
Okay. Yes, exactly. So from a global LLM perspective, but many application of this. So the challenge is, again, overwhelming by different governance facet. How do you determine what is really important? First consideration is the AI technique that's going to be used, and then risk tolerance, and then compliance requirement, which gives priorities into what needs to be done. So let me go back. I'll share again two element of slide we've shared last time, and then I'll dive into some details here. So the what this slide represents is that AI governance is supported by 6 pillars. AI frameworks, data management, data operation, risk management, cybersecurity, ethics and privacy system and model. You can consider these as governance silos. In many organizations, these are managed very distinctly by different sector of the organization. So, but in order to succeed with AI system, the idea is that you need a unified perspective on these different facets. That's a key requirement. And you need to consider the governance requirement throughout the overall life cycle. So what are the governance requirements about AI eligibility? When can you use AI? How do you procure AI? How do you facilitate the adoption of AI? How do you design AI? How do you deploy? How do you operate? These element of AI global life cycle must be considered as different facets of AI governance. So we've looked at this. Now you look at this, and again, you see many element that needs to be considered, and this might be a constraint to move forward. It can lead to paralysis. There's too many elements. So how can you be lean about this? Where do you go and where do you start? My point earlier was that identify within this framework the subsets that's relevant to what you want to do. So how do you do this? Well, first, let's consider an AI governance model here. This model is inspired by the OECD model. What it suggests is that there is an environmental layer for governance. So it can be either external laws and relation or internal internal environment of an organization, business objective. But what is AI governance? There's 2 buckets, and we're going to deep dive in these 2 buckets right after. But what are these buckets? There's 2 elements. You need to put in place this governance layer, which has 2 aspects. AI management, you need to focus on structure. Structure means policies and framework and strategy. You need to focus on the people, the accountabilities, the stakeholder management, alignment, how deciding how things should be done. Capability building, definitely, and detailed processes. So you need to put these elements in place to support the building of AI system. Now, you don't need everything, but you need to consider how you support this. But then the essence of governance is deciding how you want to do things. But the governance operation, what is operationalizing AI governance? It simply means making sure that when you build an AI system, the AI system layer here, when you build an AI system, the governance requirements are clear. So you need to make sure you have a prescription mechanism so the project knows what needs to be done. They execute certain artifacts and they submit evidence for gating. So the process of governance is really simple in a sense here. It's defining how you want things to be done and making sure it's done that way. It's a simple process. Now, where it becomes complicated is that the nature of these activity can be related to data operation, data management, risk management, cybersecurity. Many topics needs to be addressed throughout of this. But that's the idea here. So 2 buckets. First bucket is ensuring readiness. You build these foundational capability. Second aspect is enable success, making sure that you help and contribute to the success of AI initiative by ensuring the right evidence are created, thus ensuring trust in the product that will be built. You might have seen the MIT report from 2 weeks ago that says 95% of organization get zero return on Gen AI investment. So you don't want to be in the 95%. You want to make sure that the product you built using good technology, you want to make sure all the required facets are considered. So that's the frame here. Now, let's look at what that means here in the context of FNOL, chatbot, and more generally in context of LLM governance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, we're going to deep dive into each of these elements here. What needs to be done in terms of structure, people, alignment? What does it mean? What are the elements that fits into this when we're talking about LLM technique? And what does it mean to govern an initiative that use and build and leverage LLM techniques? What are the specifics when it's about LLM? Any question to that point?
Paul, I wonder, you were talking about some of the initiatives you have in LLM. I know we had quite a few discussions. Is there anything that you have around this area?
Maybe not yet. I'll just hold my. I do have a few questions, but maybe let's progress a little bit further down.
Okay.
Okay, let's dive into this. And to do this, I will use the Podago solution and the element of playbook. So again, this is not about the technology. It's about ensuring we get a view on the details. So what we have here in our platform is that we have an AI technique playbook for LLM. So we know the specific governance requirement in the context of LLM, and we're going to dive into these specific requirements. So diving here in a perspective of here's the different requirement. What you see here are the 6 pillars. Remember, we've looked at AI framework, data operation, risk, ethics, privacy, cybersecurity. And for each of these elements, there are many requirements that come under this. And we're going to dive into the 6 pillars, but we're not going to do this per pillar. We're going to switch here to another view, which is let's look at what needs to be done in terms of AI management and what does it mean in terms of governance operation. So these 2 buckets here, AI management, governance operation, are these 2 buckets here. We're going to dive into each of these elements specifically on perspective of LLM. What does that mean? And let's start with the governance operation requirement. Let's start with in my project, what needs to be done. I'm building an AI system. LLM technology is being involved. What are the specific requirements that apply in that context? We're going to look at these elements, and we're going to dive into them and see what are the specificities. Then we're going to look at, in terms of AI management and structure, what needs to be put in place to support this capability, to scale for the next one, to have the capability at the enterprise level to support the creation of this type of initiative. So let's dive into, for an LLM initiative, what are the requirements? Yes, Howard.
Yeah, so Mario, I just wanted to check with you. About 3-4 weeks ago, we had a presentation from a lady who was talking about the EU AI Act, and isn't it? I'm sure that what you're doing here would also connect to that AI Act. And one of the things that really struck me was saying that we need to make sure that all of our people within our organization are data literate, AI literate. And I see there's in your AI management, you have the people side of it. Is that talking to that aspect of these requirements?
Absolutely. So here what we do is we consider, if you're building an AI system using LLM technology, what are the foundational requirements? Now, on top of these requirements, certain laws and regulations will add to this. They will either add new requirements, so they might add other consideration on people here that might not be covered here. So these are the foundational requirement the EU AI Act would add to this. We're doing a training together, hour in 2 weeks for in insurance company in India context. The DPDPA, which is the India Regulation on Privacy, adds to these requirements in the same way. It's going to say that in terms of ethics and privacy, certain requirements that our privacy requirement needs to be added. So this is the central core requirement that is inherent to building an AI technology, but then different laws and regulations will add to what you show here. The idea is, where do you start? What's the starting point? Starting point is based on the nature of the technology, and then compliance requirement like AI Act, EU AI Act, will add or put more criticality on certain aspects. And certainly the EU AI Act will bring a specific requirement on the people side of things, definitely.
Thanks.
So what does that mean here? Let's dive into this. So you have an AI initiative, and these are the topics you need to consider. And let's go through the different topics. So different topic, business alignment. What does that mean? It means you need, when you build your system, to put in place mechanism that will ensure that the system being built is aligned with the enterprise priorities, and that the risk-benefit trade-off. And these elements are a key and fundamental aspect of succeeding in building the technology. So you need to put in place during the project, this is a project-based activity, put in place element to ensure business alignment. You need to consider many team and training perspective. So you might need to train the team on responsible AI, on ethical data management, on the identifying and doing training on more global or general AI consideration. But team and training is a specific aspect that requires consideration. Now you're seeing a lot of components here, and you say, well, in my project, if I do all of this, everything's going to stop. So the idea is not all of these things are critical to the success. So it's about, and we're going to look at this in a second time. We're going to identify, let's go at the AI management, okay? Let's look at the component you have here. The idea is that you can identify a crawl, walk, and run perspective on this. Okay, if you look at everything that needs to be done, certain things are more adapted to a low maturity organization in terms of AI governance. So the idea is consider everything that needs to be done and then identify a subset that is relevant. And the crawl, walk, and run perspective provide a sense of the subset that is relevant. But let's continue the walkthrough here. We'll remove the tags, but consider here the element of training that needs to be part of the mechanism, definitely on that part. Accountability management. You need to, create a governance responsibility matrix, designate person accountable for the outcome of the AI system. So many activities that are specific to accountabilities, to stakeholder management, to legal and compliance, what applies, specific laws, you need to understand them from the project perspective. So this bucket here is about frameworks. It's considering element of structure that applies. It's about again, business alignment. It's about team and training, accountability, stakeholder, legal compliance. Now, in your project, you need to address specifically data operation. So governance requirement in the context of LLM includes specifically, as in all AI projects, data operation. So you need to clarify data accountabilities. You need to make sure data sources are well identified at the system level, at the business term level. You need certainly to document and ensure metadata on the data that's being used, on the different data sets being used for training. You need to make sure that they are fully considered and addressed throughout the project. You need to consider retention requirement, create a data retention plan for project data. So we can go in a lot of details on each of these elements that, again, they are part of the overarching sets of activity that must be addressed in the context of the initiative. Yes, Howard.
And I'm assuming now when you talk about data operations, you're also talking about records management. So it's not just the data, but it's also all of the content that the chatbot or the LLM will consume or share. That's also an important point in this as well. So we need to be aware of that there as well.
Absolutely. So when we say, data requirement from the information lens perspective, identifying which data is most critical, there might be open data requirement. If you're, within Government of Canada, the perspective of certain data will need to be exposed is a fundamental part of the initiative.
Wow.
Data sharing consideration, and certainly data quality management. Many aspects needs to be addressed either in a formal or informal way, but different aspect here. So what we've seen so far are, first two buckets here. We've got data operation, we've reviewed accountabilities, metadata retention, data requirement, open data sharing, quality. These are elements and facet of governance that needs to be addressed. We've seen framework component, data operation. Risk management, definitely from a risk management perspective in the project, identifying, assessing different facets of risk. There might be different approach. AI risk assessment, you might be an potential impact and harm from the development. You might do a specific AI safety impact assessment. So different type of assessment can be required. It depends. There's another layer after, again, to determine when does this apply, because it does not apply in all LLM initiative. We're going to look at this in a second time. And definitely risk mitigation activity that needs to be planned, and a plan on risk management. Cybersecurity in the context of LLM, that comes in an element of safety and security, let's call it that way. Robustness management, conduct red team exercise, the many elements related to robustness management, robustness to a different type of attack, business continuity requirement, how critical is that that system for the organization, making sure that in certain contexts, a business continuity plan needs to be addressed, needs to be created. More specifically, if we consider LLM technology, pre-training safety, okay, many things about defining filtering criteria for pre-training data set, okay, remove undesirable content before training. If your model is being trained using a different website from the internet, you might have a domain block list as a technique to increase pre-training safety. You might consider model-based filtering, keyword-based matching, and black box filtering. These are different techniques that can be used in the context of pre-training safety. Yes, Howard.
So this is amazing. So we are saying that cybersecurity has a role to play in the training and the establishment of the LLM. So they are also getting involved in defining which data is appropriate for this LLM. And I'm assuming that will have some sort of overlap with the governance in terms of the quality and the fit for purpose. So what data is appropriate for this LLM and what data is appropriate for training, testing, and then production.
Absolutely. And these elements that you see here, they come from the world best practices in doing this. And when you see that all these best practices framework, they cover one part of what needs to be covered, but you see them a global perspective. This actually comes from a survey that was done by the Peking University called LLM Safety Holistic Survey. This is a 100-page document, that goes into a lot of detail about these elements. So here's what it means. Okay, let's consider pre-training safety. This is about data filtering from pre-training safety. So where does that come from? These elements I'm showing you, they come from this type of framework, this LLM safety framework, and it says you need to remove undesirable content using key-based matching. Now, for each of these elements, not only we have a description, they also provide element of example, element of different technology that can be used here. So you see that for each of these techniques that are suggested, there can be specific methods that can be applied. So when we bring a perspective of the nature of the control that needs to be considered, many of these control will suggest element of technology and different specification can be added. I'm going in a lot of detail here, but the idea, if we come back to higher level here, I'm going back to our LLM technology perspective. The idea in what I was showing is that when you consider the cybersecurity requirement, these requirements on pre-training safety, these elements, I wanted to show you where they come from and
Right.
the level of detail in which this can go into. So do you need all of this? Well, it depends again. Post-training safety, element of mechanism, measure the distance between fine-tune and align LLM model. Now, before you do this, you need to define the acceptable distance between the fine-tune model and the align model. So these are governance initiatives where stewardship and business expertise is required. Unlearning and editing as technique to not only they can be feature of the system you develop, they can be safety mechanism in many aspects. LLM safety deployment. So, a strategy to mitigate prompt injection attack. So you need to consider the different activities that can be executed here in support of this. So going back here, cybersecurity, big part of governing and making sure you create a governance system here. I'm going into privacy rights, privacy rights meaning, privacy notification, consent management, the right to opt out from a chatbot consideration of analysis, consent management, what needs to be done, explainability, data minimization. What are the specific activities on data minimization that you need to address? Yes, Adam.
Hi, Mario. Quick question. Is there an available list of the out-of-the-box practices templates? And can those be, say, duplicated so they're modified? So you keep the original, but you have your own customized one.
Absolutely. So that's a challenge that Howard and I have been working on in the past years or decades, I would say. So how do you connect the dots between framework while allowing to bring specificities? So what you're seeing here, this list here, is the harmonized semantics that allows to connect different framework together. Now, depending, you can add in the tool, but that's a tooling component. You can have specification and say, in my organization, here's how we're going to do it. So you keep the harmonized semantic, because if you change the fundamental harmonized component, you lose the capability to connect the dots. But we're using specifications as a way to customize how it's going to be implemented in an organization. So this is a more
Adam,
yeah.
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 Adam, what we are doing is we're building metadata templates, but also a meta model of which attributes are in which templates. So, and then over and above that, we're building scorecards so that when people submit that, or if you use this, you can take that scorecard as a basis and change it to the way you would like to do it. So important for us is that we have existing templates, we have procedures and OPs that Mario is talking about, and then how do we score it? How do we check that this has been done correctly? What are some of the suggestions in that thing?
So are they available as, for example, as a single document segmented out to be able to be reviewed? Or do you actually have to go through the program and through each one of them individually?
Mario, if it's okay, if I can just sort of share that with Adam in terms of what it looks like. Sorry, Mario, I may.
I know.
So just let me take over for a while. So this is something that we've been working on for many years. These are all the templates that we have, 310 templates. We've used the basic DMBOK as a structure, and then we've added more to it. So, for example, these are the data governance deliverables, the definition, and then we go to the data quality definition, the deliverables in data quality. And then when we look at that, you can then go along and you can see all of these together in terms of, let's go to a data quality factor rating matrix. And each of these elements have a metadata tag. They have a list of what's appropriate. They have, and then we've got sample data to give you an example of what would go into something like this. And then there's a corresponding data quality critical data element, a data quality expectation, a data quality assessment.
I noticed you've got a couple of spill errors.
Yes.
In the file.
So, but that's the way we put it together. Or every single metadata artifact has it's documented with this information.
Have you released this yet? Is it, for example, could I get a copy to review?
So it would come with the product. It will come with Predago, the product. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if there, if it could be separate and just available for review in advance.
We would do that as part of the onboarding. That would part of the training that we are going to be delivering will be showing them the operation, the OPs, and then the templates, and we'll go through that, and they will be building something for themselves. So they will go through the process of establishing a business process with the appropriate artifacts and things like that.
Okay. And have you done comparisons, comparison contrasts to competing software to highlight the differentials?
Mario may have done it, but I've just been helping Mario to provide that meta model and the metadata, but I'm not sure if there's a comparison. I think we did. We at one stage, Paul Bolton helped us with looking at YOOI. I think it's changed its name. They also were doing a great job. I liked what they did. Paul, do you? Nick Avasenge. So
yes, yeah.
So he's doing something like this, but I haven't seen that orchestration.
Okay, Mario, if you have the names and stuff, I'd love to see that, because I one of the key things in any product is, what are your differentials? What makes you different and better, in air quotes for any program, than your competitors?
Yes, absolutely. And I must say we're in a quite unique space, okay, because you see all these fragments. So what are the orchestration? What's the orchestration layer? There's no software that exists at the orchestration layer level, I would say. This is why, the Prodago is a two-time Gartner cool vendor. This is the top technology trend 2025 from Gartner. We're listed there because there's nothing on that aspect. The real alternative to this is working with the big four integrator and get that knowledge. The orchestration is a challenge, and the reason for that is that there's no harmonized semantic to bring these together. And this is what I'm showing you by going through that detail, this harmonized semantic and the structure around it. If you don't have it, you cannot harmonize the framework. You cannot bring them in context of projects.
Right. I mean, we know there are a lot of data governance programs and frameworks out there. Calibra's got theirs, Informatica's got theirs. There's about 3 or 4 or 5 others. But I don't think they go to that, providing that level of guidance out of the box. A lot of it, you have to develop your own.
Yes, yeah, and this is we
sorry, Mario. Sorry, Mario.
Yes.
I think we may be going off the point.
Yes, let me wrap this in the 3
Can
minutes.
we come back to
My
Adam a little bit
Yes.
later? Sorry.
No, this is exciting stuff. Okay, let me wrap this in a second here. So, we're seeing activities, we're seeing artifacts. Howard just shown some artifact. I mean, probability, severity of harm. Here's an example of the artifact. This is about assessment, and that's an example of one artifact, which is one of them. And Howard mentioned the volume of that, and that's a true accelerator in doing this. Now, to complete the element here, so privacy right, consent management, definitely data minimization, fairness, human in control, typo here, and then everything that's specific to AI system and model and objective and going into the detailed characteristic of the system. That's the 6th pillar. So what I've done here is I went into what are the governance requirements that are specific to building an LLM, an AI system using LLM technique. And this should be a driver to where do you start, which components are required. And what you've seen here is that, we can go in a lot of detail. And what we've done is that we bundle these perspectives with a perspective of crawl, walk, and run. And the idea is you see all of this, and where do you start? So filter, on crawl, and that provides you with a subset of the minimal thing you should consider in getting into that zone. And you see them per topic, and governance, on framework, on alignment, on quality, both on the AI management side and in the project. The idea is this cannot be conceptual. That's the whole theme of the whole training, Howard. Mention going from concept into tangible stuff. The key to doing this is being able to identify the relevant subset on which you can act. So the objective was to deep dive a bit into what are the governance specificities on LLM. The governance requirement will be different if you're building, a predictive modeling on automating visa decision request. Different consideration, and this should inform your AI governance strategy. Howard.
Great, Mario. Thank you very much. Now, I suppose what I wanted to just bring is bring back some of the content that we were talking about, where this all started. And we started with designing or understanding the insurance claim processing scenario. So what is insurance claim processing all about? And the first one was first notice of loss, and that's where we spoke about the chatbot in engaging with the claimant or the agent from the broker. So the claimant may be talking to their broker. The broker is insured or connected to MetLife or whatever it is, and so there could be different parties that we're talking to, and the chatbot will help the claimant submit all the appropriation, confirm that all the details are correct, everything from the incident report on the police or an OCR or an image recognition, any of that comes in, and then there's a process of determining what data is required to be delivered by that FNOL. And that would talk to what Mario was saying is what's the critical data that comes in from this chatbot? What do we need to get before we go into anomaly detection? Okay, so then what I've done is taken that anomaly detection. So we've moved on from first notice of loss to anomaly detection. And it's now about saying, well, how do we get there? What AI techniques do we use to go through this anomaly detection? And when I was doing this anomaly detection, I was blown away by the connection to the data quality reasonableness dimension. So the overlap between these two is that anomalies often indicate unreasonable data, fraudulent transactions, different levels and issues like that. So that's what the anomaly detection is doing. It's developing patterns around the data, and anything that doesn't fall into that pattern can be considered to be unreasonable. So reasonable failures can be flagged as anomalies. So we've got this tension, and that to me was really exciting in terms of now how can I use AI to drill down on this data quality reasonableness. Okay, so here's just an overview of anomaly detection process. How do we go about it? We define thresholds. We don't really need supervised learning. We can.
Howard.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, so I was talking about anomaly detection, and then what struck me was the relationship between and the overlap between anomaly detection using AI techniques and the data quality reasonableness dimension. So that was quite an interesting investigation in terms of how can I use anomaly detection routines from AI to detect reasonableness, to validate reasonableness. I see poor quality network is. Are you, Paul? Are you still able to see? Or
Yes.
okay,
Yes, we can
maybe
still
that's
see.
what I should do. Maybe I should just turn off incoming video. That's view. Where is it now? View. Okay. All right. I'm hoping that will help us a little bit more. Okay. So there's the overlap. These two things work, and they work together. And this is the routine that I developed to help anomaly detection enhance reasonableness validation. So the reasonableness is, here's an example of the claim amount must be less than 1 million. The claim date must be within a policy active period, detection levels. And so I can have these business rules, and then I can implement them with anomaly detection. And here's a concept called dynamic thresholds. So these thresholds can change based on historical data. As we add more data, the thresholds can change, and we're trying to keep the thresholds up to date with what's happening. Unsupervised learning, it's really important there in terms of being able to make use of the appropriate samples within the history and understand the patterns that we're seeing in those samples. We shouldn't always have to have a SME supervise our learning. We should also be able to make use of unsupervised learning. And then we can complement the rule-based checking. Okay, so multi-dimensional outliers and what they refer to as multivariate. And then we give a feedback loop. So we would see anomalies, and we would then suggest that back to the model to say, we believe these are challenges that you're facing. Now, let me show you what this looks like in Power BI. So I've created a data set. I'll be with you now, Adam. I've created a data set, and I've used three routines. I've used one class SVM, I've used isolation forest, and I've used PCA, which is an auto encoder. And what you can see here is that I have classified the risk levels. So there's 0, 1 is the light blue, and then 2 is the dark blue, and then we've got orange as high. And I'm able to look at all of these claims. These are 10,000 claims that I'm looking at. I've used synthetic data generation, and I can determine where these outliers are sitting by incident type: accident, fire, medical, other, theft. And I can click on any one of these. You can see accident is the one that's really problematic. I can click on accident, and it will show me what the outlier is, or what the score is for the outlier. And then I can right click into this and go through to the actual details of the claim and show the user, on this, it's in the test split, that's the claim amount, that's the duration days, the claimant age, the age of the person, the policy duration, and the previous claims. So I'm using this feature data, and I'm using these critical data elements of the engagement: duration, claim amount, duration days, claimant age, policy duration, and previous claims. Those are helping me detect the anomalies. And so I can go backwards and forwards on this, understanding what these different ratios are. I can just drill down to the details. Yes, Adam.
Two things. One, on your previous slide, I liked everything you had there. The only question I would have on that would be, how are you exposing transparency for the unsupervised learning?
And when you talk about transparency for unsupervised learning, what I have here, and that's specifically in the isolation forest area, that's the one that does all that training. I can show every single score that has been allocated to every single claim. And then, the people can say, well, okay, what is for a specific claim? Here is all the data. And this is the score that we got. So we got a score from the isolation forest of 0.61. The threshold was 0.60. That was set by the data steward, and that's why we got the flag in terms of isolation forest, which is the only one of these three that does that unsupervised learning.
And then I would ask, okay, this is displaying the data and what and how it was calculated, but what, from this view and that dashboard, how do I tie in and say, okay, it did exceed the forest threshold score there to cause it to be high, but what aspect or combination of aspects resulted in that? And
Okay.
is it a legitimate high, or is it a false?
So
flag?
what I've done here is I'm actually using multiple scoring. So it's not just the isolation forest. It's also the one class SVM, and you can see one class SVM has also
15 to
exceeded
25.
this.
I see that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And the
So
PCA.
yeah, so we've had multiple detection algorithms exceed the criteria. So it's not just the one, we've had the 3 exceed, and now the challenge comes into working with the data steward as to say, well, what are the elements of the combination? Or that's what we refer to as multivariate claim duration days, and claimant hours, and policy duration. So that's 17 years. They will need to, and it's like all your reasonableness checks. You get a thing that doesn't fit the boundaries or the patterns, and someone needs to go and do some further investigation. Now, I cannot tell you exactly what aspect of this combination is the one that highlighted. I can just say that it's been highlighted.
Okay. Yeah, because again, to me, that would go towards the continued learning. So
yes. So
if I'm not,
I will be getting to that,
misinterpreting.
Adam. Next week, I'll be actually showing you how the stewards can look at it, detect that this was a false claim, and then add their own labeling to it, so that the unsupervised learning is getting a comprehensive set of supervision or labeling, if that's the next step to go.
Because if I just looking at the data points there, what I interpret that is the policy has been in existence for 17 years.
Yes.
Claimant is 66 years old. There's only been one previous claim.
Yeah.
This is a larger claim amount probably than the previous, and it's been open for longer than would normally be desired.
Yeah. So that's you can see from this scatter plot, that's the position of that claim. It's sitting over there. So you can see these are the patterns of all of the other claims. So there's something like, I think it's a total of 10,000. That's those light gray dots is where a lot of your clustering is. So you can see this one is sitting on the outside of that.
So for clarification, it would be interesting to use this as a quote synthetic real life example of where we've got this, and now what's a data steward going to do it with this?
Correct.
How are they going to make that determination?
Definitely, and that's where I'm moving, and hopefully by next week we will be building an agent to help the steward, the SME, to start discussing this claim and start asking questions as to, what possibly led to this. What is the other supporting data? If I compare other claims in that area, it's about some of the comparisons and understanding where it is an outlier. So we'd have the box and whisker plot and to be able to establish that as well.
Okay, very much looking forward to that.
So certainly what is important about reasonableness, and this is where I'm comparing it to reasonableness, is does it meet the required pattern? And you can see in the situation, it doesn't meet the required pattern. It's on the boundary. It's on that upper boundary. So why is it there? And that's something that we need to check. Now, I'd need to sit with an SME and say, well, okay, let's investigate this thing and let's see what that looks like and why is it outside of the pattern. So most data quality dimensions give you a black and white. It's in or it's out. It's right or it's wrong. But reasonableness is not like that. Reasonableness is a situation of saying, I think it's outside because it doesn't meet the pattern. This is why, which one of the algorithms haven't met the pattern, and now what can we do about it?
And how to make that process as easy as possible and clear as possible for the data steward to act on.
And what you'll what you'll see is so now we're starting to, it was unsupervised. We're now starting to use label data to get the supervision better. And this is the area that I'll be talking about next week, where we use the labeling, synthetic data, to label the anomalies and say, this one in the past has been, we found this one to be false, and they would then bring some of the historical data into it. Okay, so basically the process that I've developed is also starting with synthetic data, just to make sure that I can see the patterns. I can inject anomalies to make sure that the model and the unsupervised learning detects these anomalies. So I want to just show you what that looks like in Power BI. So I've got a flag of is anomaly. So these are the ones that were generated, and then I've got another one to say, well, these are injected anomalies, and you can see the differences straight away. You can see those that have been injected have been identified immediately. So it's these ones on the far outside, and you can see how they change the shape of those boundaries and add more clarity and more variability. I wonder if you can see there, it goes all the way up to from 0 to 30 and to -40. Some of these claims are sitting quite far out. And if I go to a drill through to be able to see, well, show me what the details are, that's the detail of that one over there. So the claim duration has taken a year. That's the big issue that this one is facing. It's got an anomaly on the amount of years. So what this is helping me do is to say, does my techniques of anomaly detection, are they working on the anomalies? So have I found all the anomalies that I put into the model, if that makes sense?
And I don't want to jump in front of you, William, but I think this is really pertinent. Howard, you've done exactly what I always do when I create test data for my testers, because I've seen when I leave test data to be created by testers, almost always I see them create perfect records, and they go, "No, we have no problems. Everything's perfect." And I look at the data they're testing, and it's because they've put all the data in exactly as a perfect record would be.
Right.
And then when I go and I create my own sets of data, and I know exactly what records should generate what errors for what reason, their system blows up.
Right.
So I love that you've done that.
Yeah, and that was really nice. You got to think hard about how to move the different features or critical data elements, how to twist them to be able to, first of all, make sure, are you picking them up? And then also what's important is that those anomalies do not go into the training data to determine the Z-score or the standardized data. So they've got to stay away from the standardized data in that scenario. Any anomaly should not, that's the outline, it should not be part of the standardized data. Yes, William.
So, Howard, I'm very, very interested in this. One of the challenges one runs into is when you've got multiple algorithms and you are combining them, they can negate one another and bring something into reasonableness that wasn't actually supposed to be.
Okay, so William, I'm not combining them. Are they operating independently? But I'm now basically saying how many of these algorithms have detected an error, not combining them.
Okay, I'm with you there. Oh, that's cool.
Okay. All right. So let me go back to that recipe, generate the data, then split the data. And here it's actually quite amazing as to playing around with 80, 70, 60, and playing around, then normalizing the data, which I'm going to show you. Then we do the anomaly detection with the appropriate configuration. And the nice thing is that you can actually put parameters into your Power BI and allow the business user to play around with the parameters that adjust each model and then allow the scoring to happen. So they are in charge of looking at the boundaries and creating the boundaries. So it's not me. I've able to allow them to do that as well. So when we normalize data, this has really been fascinating in terms of taking and it's getting to the Z score, which was quite interesting. So can you see here? I've got claim amount that goes up to 10,000. These are anomaly data elements. I've got claim duration, which goes to around about 365, and I've got claim age, which also goes to the 120 mark. And what you can see very quickly is that certain variables like claim amount will overshadow duration days, claimant age, previous claims. It overshadows it tremendously. So what you do is you create a Z score, and you can see here now that I'm now bringing them all the way around close to the 0 mark, 0 to +5 and -5 on duration days, from 0 to 4 and to -4, and claimant age from 0 to +2 and -2. So when we standardize or normalize, we're trying to get the standard deviation equal to 1 and the mean equal to 0. And there you can see the mean of 0.01. Sorry, I can't see at the moment. Are there any questions? Okay. All right. So that's what we do in the process of normalization. So every single claim, we take the feature for that claim and for that category of claim, and we basically take the feature, we minus the mean, and we divide by the standard deviation. Okay. And then what I do as well, just for yours, William, is for you as well, is over and above using the anomaly detections, I also look at the absolute value of the Z score, and if it's over 3 or 4, I already start saying this deviation or this Z score is way out of the threshold as well. So there's actually 4 areas that I'm looking at. And so here's just an example of unscaled data. This is what it looks like when you put it on a bar chart, and you can see certain elements just disappearing. And here I've got scaled data. So there's claim amount that's now been scaled, and the deviations for 100,000 is sitting at 512. So the deviation is massive in that area. Okay, so this was the process of going from raw to normalized to standardized data. And this is very helpful when you're dealing with almost that row validation. Remember, with data quality, we can deal with column validation and we can deal with row validation. Now, when we're dealing with multiple variables, multiple CDEs on the same row, we've got to get to a scaled version, which is the standardized data. And that's the technique we use to be able to compare these different variables. Okay, what else was important was splitting the data. How do we split it and label it with the anomalies? So this is the technique that I've used, and we can see here that we've taken the total 10,000 and then add on the 25 anomalies that were injected. We've then got the training data as 80%, 7,900, and the test data and the production data. And here you can see that before I even start applying the anomalies, I've injected my own anomalies, and that's the split on the data. Okay, then when we come to the anomaly detection, these are the different features that we use. We create the thresholds, and then we start building the flags. So we build the flags for one class SVM, isolation forest, and auto coding. And then we see, well, does each flag exceed the threshold for that anomaly detection? So if the score is greater than the threshold, then it gets a flag of 1 for OC SVM. If the score from iForest exceeds it, then it gets a flag. And now we can use that to visualize the data. And the last thing is this visualize and inspect. And this was the demo that I was doing on Power BI. I can break it up into these different areas, and then we can allow the SME to start questioning each one of these areas and determining whether it's right or wrong. The nice thing about it is that I've been able to publish this onto powerbi.com, so we can now share it with everybody. Those are the different areas, and we can now go and view it on Power BI, and people can look at their own version and interact with those anomalies and see what it means to them. All right. So that's sort of what I wanted to show you. Next week, what I'm going to be taking you through is how do we get the SMEs to start labeling the actual claims that were false, and then do the detection algorithms. Do they get better at understanding false claims? Any questions, comments? Yes, William.
Yeah, I got a question for Mario. Mario, one of the things that becomes painfully obvious when you have a look at everything that you need to have in place that you showed us is that probably, I mean, there are very few companies that have actually gone and done all those things, right? And so when they want to implement AI, they now have to say, well, gee, I really actually have to get my data management into shipshape, because it's not an optional thing anymore. Is that then factored into the return on investment for AI, or is that return on investment for data management, and then AI is a separate return on investment?
I mean, the different facets here. When you look at all these requirements, and you're right, I haven't seen any organization close to having and handle all these facets. So the real key that we're seeing is that you look at this and you determine what is required to succeed. Okay, it should be a decision-making process. Okay, it's about a decision support process. It's about looking at these requirements and say, in order to create a trusted product, okay, what are the fundamental elements that we need? And you look at the subset that's required. But the most important thing is that you don't need all of that. You need a subset that's relevant for your context, and it's about knowing, and then it's more about the capability to identify the subset. So in that perspective, when we work with the Canadian Department of Defense, the process is not about building this capability. It's not. It shouldn't be. It's about putting in place a mechanism to have the agility to connect business objective with governance requirement. It's about the agility to connect the dots. It's not about building the capability. And if you have that mindset, you determine how will we identify the critical governance requirement based on what we want to accomplish. This is the top process that should support this. So that's the first facet part of your question. The second part is, and I was talking about MIT saying 95% of organization gets zero return on Gen AI investment. So the ROI is low because organization lack the capability to go beyond just creating a model. It's about making sure the development is truly connected with business objective and what the organization wants to accomplish. So this process of identifying the minimal requirement is about identifying the minimal subset required to not be in the 95%. Okay, it's about that. And when you're in that zone, then the impact on the ROI is direct. So I don't know if that answers your question, but definitely no organization come close to covering all of this, but it's not about having all of that.
Sure. So is the idea...
Sorry, William. Just to add a little bit more clarity, when you do your ROI calculations, if there's two levels, there's one which can mean data management or a data product has direct revenue, and then there's indirect revenue. And in the scenario of an LLM or an AI thing, the data management has an indirect, so it contributes a percentage to the ROI of the AI product. Okay, so you as data management and the organization needs to be clear on the techniques we use to calculate the ROI.
I'm totally with you in that. But when somebody comes along and says, I want to put in AI, normally they come along and they say, yes, I'd like that engine, but they're not factoring in the fact that they've got to have the car and all the rest of it, right? Otherwise, they're not going anywhere. So they need to have the data management as well. And if that's not
but what we're saying is that data management is going to contribute a percentage to the benefit for the product. So yes. You're right. The car, the data management needs to be there. But what percentage is the discussion that we'd have for that initiative?
Yes. Okay. So that's really my question. You've got two ROIs, and you mustn't confuse the two. The one is for the AI.
Well,
and the
remember, what we're saying is that data management is contributing a percentage of the ROI for that initiative, that whatever that business initiative is, data management for that situation is contributing a percentage. You have to debate and discuss what that percentage is, but there's a percentage calculation, and that's what's referred to as an indirect level of costing.
Yeah, so look, I do understand that. So really what I'm trying to say is, if I go in on a project-based thinking, that I'm going to implement an LLM on a project-based thinking, I cannot walk away thinking, well, I did data management, but for my project, there's something got to remain behind for data management, right? To continue to take care of it. So my data management is low.
Problem. Tell me how does that relate to direct and indirect costing for an ROI? That's the thing that we're trying to work out.
So you've got return on investment that you've calculated for having an LLM in place, which is going to be taking care of the costs that you would normally pick up from people, et cetera, that's now being taken over by the having the tools, et cetera, available. You've got that side of things, but then you've got the cost of, if I have not put in data management properly, I'm going to have to fill in the blanks before I can do this. I'm going to have to fill in the dots so that I'm able to do this. That should remain behind. It shouldn't be part of a project, correct?
Okay, so let's go back on this. It's a business initiative, and there's a business element that's being delivered. And now we would ask ourselves, what is the ROI of that business initiative? That's the first question. Let's agree the ROI to the business on that initiative. And then what we'll do is to say, okay, data management must be part of it. So we can't say data management is not part of it. What is the indirect value that data management brings to that initiative? And then you'd agree on a percentage that data management contributes, and it's not just a once-off cost; it's an ongoing cost. All of the post-training, all of that stuff. There's ROI goes not a 1 year payback period, but goes 3, 4, 5, 6 years payback, and you've got to keep on monitoring it. Every year you need to recalculate what your ROI is.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Another way to look at this is a data management group in a financial institution, for example, is being challenged about, how do you contribute to the bottom line? So if data management as a group is challenged about its contribution to bottom line, one of the way of doing it is identifying the data management elements that are fundamentally required to succeed in AI initiative, which are connected to business objective. And we're seeing this in different organizations as a way to, move from a compliance-driven data management. How do you get into value or business value-driven data management? Well, one of the ways to identify the data management requirement that support the success of AI and piggyback on these objectives. We also find, different organizations that are basically forced of going in that way. The CDOs are being challenged to attach their strategy to business objective, and piggybacking on AI objective attached to business objective is a way of achieving that.
Thanks, Mario. That's helpful.
Mario, there's a question from Paul in the chat, and he's asking, what is the pricing subscription model work? How does it work? I mean, I suppose not what, but how do you work on that pricing and subscription?
Well, it's based on users, number of users, governance user, project user, and it's based on playbooks. So the playbooks are provided to the tenant, and they are updated when there's a change. So we keep we monitor the GDPR, the AI Act, the different laws and regulation, and when there's an update, we provide the update. The playbooks are also a way for Podago Modelware to deliver some artifacts. So pricing model based on number of users and number of playbooks, and we never lost a mandate because of our pricing. That would be my answer to the type of pricing.
Yeah, I mean the product looks really fantastic, and I've had a little bit of a glimpse in the previous webinar, but I couldn't really pay attention. It sort of penny dropped today of how powerful that thing is, and so just thanks. We talk more about that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Paul? You had a list of questions. You said you were making any.
Yeah, we're running out of time. I think today should have been two completely different. I mean separate. Yeah, presentations, because there's so much content in there. So I had a few questions for Mario, but maybe we can pick it up next week. But my suggestion is, it's such great content. Don't rush it. Rather spread it out more.
Yeah.
From the perspective of governance, next week, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the LLM governance requirement, and how do you identify the subset that's relevant? One of the way is to look at the context of what you're doing with the LLM and the type of risk inherent. Does it involve external data? Does it involve personal data? And the nature and the context will point to which aspect are the most critical. So we're going to look at these parameters and how to simplify the process. So when you want to use LLM, describe the context in which it's going to be used, and it should point to the most critical element from the whole spectrum that we've looked at today. This will be the topic of in the next session.
That sounds really great.
Great. Any other questions? Adam, I'm sure you've got a question.
Just for Mario, and Mario, if you don't mind, I'll connect with you offline on LinkedIn.
Excellent.
Appreciate that.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, guys, thanks very much. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful Friday weekend.
Yeah, thanks, team. Howard,
thank you.
Flight back. When do you fly? Tonight.
Oh, well, tomorrow morning at 3 o'clock, exactly.
Okay. Safe flights, safe travels.
Yet another wonderful session. Quick note, Howard, are you going to be at the CDO IQ?
I am at the South Africa one. I'm actually talking at the South Africa one next week. It starts on Monday.
Wonderful. I literally, just before joining this, I just got off a one-on-one with Bob Steiner.
Oh wow, yeah, he's talking. Yeah, he's
he's talking there too. Yeah, I wish
Fantastic.
that was in my budget to
Yeah.
virtually attend that. Actually, I wish it was in my budget to personally attend that.
Yeah,
Because I think that's going to be
good.
a wonderful. I wish they would make those at least the recordings available for that, because there's so much wonderful information can be shared there.
Fantastic. And I'll be sharing some of the work we're doing in terms of the framework mapping that Mario has been talking about. Is how do we map this to also the NDMO and the Cybersecurity frameworks and things like that. So it's just helping people understand how to bring it all together, but not to be completely focused on the frameworks, but to drive action.
Mhm.
Yes.
Excellent work, team.
Great.
Brilliant.
Thanks very
Loving
much,
it.
guys.
Thanks, Howard.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the next
Thanks,
session.
everyone. Thanks,
Thank you,
Howard.
everyone.
Thanks
Thanks,
so
Mario.
much.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Take care,
Good
all.
to see you in person.
Bye,
Anna.
Howard. Bye.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Veronica.
Howard.